Cool.
Yay.
Great.
Hey guys, good afternoon. This is Jesse and Hunter live from beautiful Longmont, Colorado in the new Bandicoot Boondocker. So we've had a little bit of technical issues, but Hunter is a Rust developer. He is a blockchain aficionado. He just came back from the Bitcoin conference in Miami, Florida. And so I'm going to let him share his experience down in Miami and talk about Rust and his blog posts on his website.
Yeah, awesome. So, let's see here. It's funny. We were just we're starting about 23 minutes late, but it's totally cool. You know, it's so funny. We were just like running back and forth trying to get Ethernet, and she just looked out, just saying, because I mean, who else would have an Ethernet switch like a Cat 8, Ethernet just to roll up into my house, and then also the specific dongle you need for a Thunderbolt 2, not Thunderbolt 3, but Thunderbolt 2 Ethernet dongle.
You definitely have to have the right dongles.
You definitely do. And so, just saying, we're good.
Strong work, Hunter. So tell us about Miami.
All right. So, that was really neat. It was very inspiring. Going to Miami made Bitcoin feel real. Like seeing so many people there and so much energy and so much interest. And then, it's funny. I was just being there inspired me to, really kind of focus on some of my own ideas. There I was kind of like, what should I build? What should I do? How should I commit to the Bitcoin community? And there I kind of thought, what I need and what tools I need to make for, basically reducing the friction for adoption, mass adoption. And that's, basically everything I want to build on my own side projects from now on. I just want to reduce the friction and make it easier, more approachable to self-host, give people instructions, communicate, even through the program. Oftentimes there's not enough prompts that make sense, or I'm not saying like a whole damn wizard, but at least some explanation of what to do, And so some of those things, like I think I can bring to the table from a development perspective, because I came from sort of the front end of web applications, and so as I've added more depth to my skill set, I've been able to figure out how to communicate with APIs and build databases and configure infrastructure, and I can do just about any part of the stack now. But I started from front end, and for me, that always inspires the rest of the development. It informs the rest of it. Is how is a user going to use it? And actually going to use it. And so that's always, my first and foremost thing, even as an entrepreneur, how are people going to use the thing I'm making? Because, I can't just, build this beautiful thing and then not put it out there. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I think that's the biggest challenge to mass adoption, is that it's so overwhelming for people and they don't have the level of expertise that you have in the technical skills. And so, working with folks like you and in this community to try to develop those more friendly user interfaces is really going to allow people to mass adopt. I mean, I think the biggest thing that came out of Miami was it the president of El Salvador?
It was huge.
Oh my God.
It changed the tone of the entire conference. Everybody was just so thrilled. I mean, it was controversial in some ways, though, I will admit. Here's the thing. I do want to kind of make sure that we frame this correctly, for us to understand this correctly, because the way they wrote it mandated that Bitcoin be legal tender, that people, if they have the technological means to do so, that they be able to accept it. And there's this kind of concern that this is a legal tender mandate. Even here in the United States, U.S. dollars aren't mandated for people to take in exchange for purchases. The only legal tender mandate here is the U.S. dollar, and so Although much respect to the El Salvadorians, I really want you to go far with this. There's still always the perception, especially here, that the more the government makes mandates and laws and says you must take this, you must do this, we are very skeptical, and rightly so. And so, to any nation out there looking to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender, I just really want to underscore the importance of Bitcoin succeeding based purely on its own merit.
Yeah, it's just huge, and yeah, it is going to definitely rock the world for a little while until they realize how simplified it is and how it allows people that are unbanked throughout the world to have access to currency and be able to trade. And
further, it'll allow people to take advantage of financial infrastructure that is, going to be decades beyond our own. For example, imagine a, Lightning node that has built-in accounting software and built-in crowdfunding software and built-in peer-to-peer lending software. I mean, these are entire industries that could just be encapsulated into a single software daemon that is self-hosted and you don't need to pay anybody for to operate, and you don't need anybody's permission to run. And so, such a thing could allow financial infrastructure that is so far beyond what mega corporations here with thousands of employees in their accounting department have access to. It could make any single person in the world have the same advantages as they do, because they're just technological automation. I mean, if we're not going to build the tools for anybody to do this with, the peer-to-peer financial infrastructure we're building, then, I mean not peer-to-peer payments, but like literally like peer-to-peer, as in like one node talking to another on a distributed network. If we're not going to do that with the technology we're building right now, then what's the fucking point? Like, what is the point of DeFi if you're going to keep the source behind the servers behind lock and key? Not any one person can, spin up their own, DeFi marketplace and put up, post a Solidity smart contract specifically only for that marketplace. You can't, form a network of these really as easily as you could just a peer-to-peer, a network of peer-to-peer nodes. And so that's something actually Bitcoin is working towards, remarkably enough, is that things like Monero Farcaster and things that allow us to, work towards kind of marketplaces based on layer 2 atomic swaps. These will, result in the capability to create decentralized exchanges where people can, base more of their sort of equity inside of Bitcoin-based layer 2 solutions, and so Lightning-based solutions. It's interesting. The Lightning Network is going to enable us to build scalable sort of infrastructure, scalable applications that not just rival what the Ethereum community has built so far, but essentially make it so that any one person can run this software, not as part of some website that you can't run on your own. It's literally a piece of software running on your own computer that could be used to integrate and interact with these networks.
Well, and I was actually playing around with the Lightning Network for the first time yesterday because I have the Start9 Labs node running.
Great.
And I just downloaded all of the apps and everything for Lightning Network because I need to be able to use it for business payment systems.
Yes.
And so, point of sale stuff. And so I haven't really dived deep into that quite yet. And hopefully David is watching this podcast so that he knows I'm coming for him because I need some help. But, the technology is moving so quickly. And what we wanted to talk about today was the Bitcoin network and Rust. And what is Rust and how is it being applied on the Bitcoin network?
Yeah, so first I'll say, it's extraordinarily difficult right now to, especially for, someone just coming in, to figure out how Lightning works and how to set that up, right? And so It is. Honestly, I couldn't even have gotten my node set up without asking Dave for a few things. It is not trivial, and but that said, I would imagine if there was better software for maintaining it and managing it that could explain to the user what to do in situations what they need to do it, then it would result in a lower barrier to entry towards self custody Lightning solutions. Also, I think from a practical standpoint, I think it's going to be important for there to be ways to sort of not scale, but make a like clustered redundant Lightning nodes that if you lose one Lightning node for whatever reason, you still have one with the same channels open elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
That that you don't have to worry about having all your eggs in one basket, and because that's the way Lightning currently is right now. But not, I think with the new O.13 release of the LND Lightning Daemon, they should be coming out with some really exciting new stuff that'll help enable lighter nodes built in and all sorts of really cool things. But the thing about Rust in particular, and the way that works towards Lightning is there's currently already some work being done by the LNPBP and also the RGB Foundation. Dr. Maxim Orlovsky is one of the hardest working Rust developers I know, and he works exclusively with Bitcoin, but he builds tools on top of Bitcoin to make it more Maxim Orlovsky.
Molovsky.
Orlovsky.
Lovsky.
Yeah.
That's easier.
Yeah, great guy, by the way. He puts on these Q&A sessions, just presentations every Wednesday morning here at least. He's based out of Zug, Switzerland, and they're talking about all these cool things that are they're building on top of Bitcoin in Rust, and that it's just really gonna. It gives me a lot of optimism for where Bitcoin can go, because generally it's coming from the Ethereum community where there's a million developers and a handful of users, and then going over to the Bitcoin Miami conference where there's like maybe some of the people there said I was the first developer they met there, and how there just not enough developers in the Bitcoin ecosystem. I wonder if,
I don't think that a lot of people view the Bitcoin blockchain as like a development blockchain, like Ethereum or Polkadot,
and that couldn't be further from the truth.
So, can you explain to us the efficiencies that the Rust development language brings to the Bitcoin network?
Sure. Well, first of all, there's not enough built specifically for Bitcoin in Rust. What I would like is something like Bitcoin Core in Rust, but that's a little ways off, as far as I know. There are, SPV clients that will, be essentially a light client. It takes 3 minutes to download the block headers, and you got maybe 150 megabytes of blocks, and that's pretty good, right? But that's about where we're at in the Rust ecosystem. But that said, that what could be built in Rust, the way I see it, is that currently your Start9 embassy, it is a Raspberry Pi 4B. It is.
You had one.
It for,
What'd you do with it?
Oh well, 1 second.
Okay.
They sell it for $350. It's and then I think there's even storage you have to get for it too if you want say the whole copy of the blockchain, right? And although it is pretty performant, 4 gigabytes of RAM is plenty for anything you might want to do with Bitcoin and Lightning, and then some. But it does take several weeks to sync through all the blocks that it needs to get set up. So if you just set it up yesterday, it's not going to be ready for at least like 2 or 3 weeks, just so you know. Like if it's syncing the Bitcoin, blockchain, it's going to take a while. Whereas like a light client will not need all that, and it would get there within a few minutes and then be ready to go. Ideally speaking. That said, though, it's funny for anybody questioning the importance of keeping the blocks small and scaling the network in other ways, and being frugal on how many bytes you put on the blockchain. I just want to show you something. Can you open this? I'm not doing that text just right now.
Fine motor skills.
I guess so.
There you go.
All right, thank you. So,
Let's see this baby.
well, first I want to show you.
I want to take it to the camera so everybody can see the package.
Check this out.
Super teensy.
That right there, 512 gigabyte SD card.
512 gigabytes.
Yeah, it has the entire Bitcoin blockchain on it as of 30 minutes ago. You know, it's synced to the latest block. This is every transaction for the past 11 years. This is trillions of dollars worth of transactions, you know.
In the palm of your hand.
Right here. This is the most cyberpunk thing I've done all year. You know, handed you all the critical financial.
I'm holding the blockchain in my hands.
Right. There you go. But here's the thing. The Raspberry Pi 4B, I think it's $80, depending on how many, you know, gigabytes of RAM you want it, and then you have to add a bunch of other stuff to it too. Whereas this right here is a Raspberry Pi Zero W, and it is a much more limited piece of hardware, and it has 512 megabytes of RAM. It's like a 1 gigahertz single core processor. It is anemic compared to the 4B, but it has wireless built in. It is super teensy. It's cute, right? And
it is cute.
It costs $10, and you know, this would be ideally what, you know, the critical financial infrastructure in the future would be able to run on for the unbanked, for the people around the world who, you know, $350 and a $10 Raspberry Pi is going to be,
right,
you know,
significant
difference. And so obviously, you know, there's the work that Start9 is doing is fantastic. It's critical. It's good for, you know, the near future.
For the non-technically savvy people like me that want to plug and play and launch my node and also like have.
Actually, I would argue that you are more technically savvy than the people this is for.
Oh, well, I just don't have the time to deal with it, Hunter.
Well, you know, most people don't.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. You know, that will limit, you know, that will limit their adoption. And ideally, it will just, you know, be a piece of hardware people could just, you know, have a few simple instructions to connect to their network, and then, you know, have access to, you know, financial infrastructure that's practically ready to go, and self-hosted, and
that's what's going to lead to mass adoption. I mean, we have to simplify this. So, but let's go back to Rust. What is Rust?
So Rust is a really interesting language. It's a programming language that is used primarily for systems programming, but it's basically the foundation. So if you can do systems programming, you can do pretty much all other forms of programming in addition to that. It is just the lowest common denominator. You can work with systems, the system, the operating system, low-level shit. But then imagine you're able to take that same code and be able to compile it for web browsers, or for, you know, Raspberry Pis, or for a desktop app. All these things, you know, are possible with just the one language. And Rust it puts emphasis on correctness and type safety and memory safety. It makes it so it's very easy to make full use of the hardware that you're working on. Actually, I shouldn't say very easy, but easier than any other language that's come before it. And then it also is stable. And honestly, it has a good balance of what we call ergonomics and just, you know, approachability, the capability for anybody to be productive in this language. And, you know, one thing that, you know, kind of gives you a good idea for its Rust's capabilities is that it's the only programming language that is allowed anywhere near the Linux kernel, other than C. So, like, the C programming language, you know, anything that really ever mattered, anything, you know, was either written in C or C++, other than, you know, COBOL systems that are ancient that, you know, work well enough, and then they just don't want to rewrite it because, you know, like, for example, like the air traffic control system or something, like written in like oldest heck languages, just like
the IRS.
If it doesn't, if it's not broke, they'll fix it.
Right.
What they'll do is they'll like containerize, like put on the cloud, like the mainframe that it used to be on, just in a virtual machine, like the IBM System 360 virtual machine, now up in the cloud, and they can put as many as they want now. And so you just take the old COBOL code, put it on that, and that's how they scale. But aside from bizarre shit like that, there's there's C and C++. And in particular, let's just focus on C. So C is the Linux kernel's written in C. Databases are written in C. Internet or web servers, or at least low-level ones, critical infrastructure, embedded systems. Much of the code that's working in many computers in your car is going to be written in C. And it takes a lot of skill to do it well, to not play knifey fingers with your code, and be able to actually be productive in C is also a challenge for many people. I really am not very interested in becoming a C developer. And I was, for a long time, a JavaScript developer, a Python developer, a PHP developer, in past lives. And so as I come into Rust, though, I've really learned to appreciate the power that it gives me while also maintaining the productivity that I'm used to, and then being able to allow myself to basically make full use of everything that I have access to. And so just because it's a systems programming language, it doesn't mean it can't do just about anything any other programming language can do. And in fact, it even more so, because it is built, when it compiles the Rust code, it compiles specifically for what you want to run it on. So there's no, virtual machine or higher mind of, construct that's sitting up in, some mathematical realm somewhere. This is, or like a virtual machine that's running bytecode written for, or like compiled specifically for that machine that then translates those instructions to the hardware it's running on. It's very inefficient. It's just not ideal. The ideal is computer instructions compiled specifically for the hardware that you're going to run it on, or the machine you're going to run it on. And that is what Rust excels at. And in fact, it can even do something that's very difficult to do called cross-compilation, which means that as a single developer, I can compile a distributable, a binary, an application for distribution, for being with the capability to be run on Mac and Windows and Linux and iOS and Android and web browsers and web servers. I can do all that from a single operating system, from a single computer.
So what you're saying is that developers need to start developing in Rust.
Absolutely. It is a language that is here to stay. It is here for the future. Some people say it's the language for the next 40 years.
So how many developers know the Rust language?
It's growing. It's growing a great deal. And in fact, the Rust community, I started writing Rust in 2018, and the Rust community now is, just levels beyond what it used to be. And, last year, in fact, Mozilla dropped support, like in-house support, at least fired many of their team. And Mozilla had really been the driving force behind Rust development since then, or before then. But since then, what's really interesting about Rust is that it really succeeded based on its own merit, and it has reached basically pretty much every company in big tech. It has proven its worth, and so all the other companies and all the other developers and the large ecosystem of open source developers has really stepped up to really make sure that this is a language that's going to be successful no matter if there's any one company that supports it or uses it. And so in a sense, how Bitcoin has benefited from the absence of Satoshi Nakamoto, Rust is benefiting from the absence of Mozilla and its creator, right? And so that basically frees it to be, the corporation agnostic, language agnostic, framework agnostic, platform agnostic. It takes all the other things and makes them better. And you see this as evidence of this in, Node.js having bindings for many Rust programs, and Python embedding Rust programs. It basically, like, if you're any other form of developer, learning Rust not only will make you a better developer, it will allow you to make your programs better too.
So if someone wants to learn how to develop in Rust, it seems to me like it's a decentralized development language. So along with like open source everything with blockchain technology, it's the perfect marriage to sort of, like you said, like corporatize everything.
Right.
And it's now the people's development language.
It really is, and in fact, it's funny. Rust is kind of notorious, a little bit notorious for taking a little while to compile, and I like to think that as developers, that the Rust compilers, what it's doing is it's going through your code very thoroughly and basically making sure that it will work no matter what, and work in the best way possible. And it takes a little bit of time to do that, a few minutes. And as more than most developers are used to waiting to see the fruits of their labor. And I like to think that the developers take on the responsibility of debugging and making sure their program works whenever, as the fast as it can be, so that the users don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about the program being slow or crashing, or taking up too many system resources, or just not working in some ways and not others. Rust helps a lot with, it doesn't eliminate all bugs, right? But many of the bugs we're used to seeing, we just don't see in Rust.
Interesting. Okay. So if someone wanted to learn Rust, what are the next steps? I mean, do they need to go to college for this? Do they?
Absolutely not. I mean, I didn't go to college. Well, I went to college for a couple of years. And this is well before Rust was, a thing. And I will say, first of all, if you're really serious about learning Rust, read my blog post. There's a link, you can go to CryptoQuick.substack.com. And I'm not just chilling. I think I lay out some really good resources there for, in my latest blog post to really get a better feel for what your next step should be and what your approach should be. And I would think that college is the least productive way to learn pretty much anything.
Yes.
But second, anyway, regardless of that, I will say a really good way to learn to write Rust is to start writing Rust. And the way you do this, imagine an application that you want to make, like a thing that would be really cool to have manifested into the world. And then all you have to do is figure out how to make it and what you need to know to make it, and then put that into practice. So learn all the things you need to do to make it a reality. And I know it sounds oversimplified, and it totally is. But really, that is your roadmap. That is your recipe.
Practice makes perfect.
Right. You're never really going to get it until you put it into practice. You have to develop an intuition for what you're doing beyond, what you're reading, what you're capable of reasoning about. It really is something you need experience in to get good at. And in order to get that experience, it's really easy to get experience in programming languages other than any other job, because all you have to do is actually do it. And you can just point to, code you've written and say, and I shouldn't say it's easy, but what I'm saying is that the barrier to entry to becoming a developer, a coder, is much less gatekept by the mere virtue of the fact that if you've written code, you can prove it by by pointing to your code on GitHub or whatever, and saying, if you can speak to that and explain how you wrote it and what it does, there should be no question as to your capability as a developer, or at least it should lay out the expectations. And so, that's my biggest recommendation is just, don't, sort of do the thing where people say, before I do this, I'll do this, right? No. What you got to do is just install Rust. There's some good website out there, Rust up. You get Rust up installed. Make sure you have your toolchain installed, and then do a cargo new, and then type the name of the thing you want to make, and it'll make you a scaffolding for making the thing. And then you go in, and it'll have just like you can run it, and you'll see your hello world, right? But then you can see that's your canvas. And look, it might be daunting. You have a blank canvas now, right? But what you do then is, okay, so what are you trying to make? Are you trying to make, let's say we're trying to make a crowdfunding website, kind of like Kickstarter or something, right? Or Indiegogo. So what you need now is, a web server. So you're going to want to be able to serve HTML, and you might even want to make HTML templates for forms and, showing projects and, all sorts of information. So you'll find, a templating library on Crates.io, and there'll be so much for you to be able to take advantage of. You'll get a nice web server like Warp or Tide, and these are two crates that'll are a good starting point for a web server, and then understanding how web servers respond to requests. Getting a feel for that, then you're well on your way to making your first website in Rust.
So basically anybody can become a Rust developer if they're willing to put the time in.
Exactly.
And what are some of the opportunities available to people who do learn the Rust language and with all the blockchain technology that's coming out?
It's one of the most in-demand languages so far. I mean, there's certainly a great deal of demand for Go and TypeScript, but at some point that's going to peak. And if it hasn't already peaked already. Whereas Rust developers, everybody's hiring, at least everybody in the blockchain community is hiring for a Rust developer of some kind. And I mean, I remember going on to a meetup, and no, it wasn't a meetup, it was a clubhouse. And we were talking about, development in the blockchain ecosystem, and there are three people who are three different people from three different companies that were capable of making hiring decisions. And all three of those companies were like I mentioned, if you're looking for a Rust job, come to the company I work for, because we're definitely always looking for Rust developers. And the other two, basically,
they're like, us too.
Yeah, us too, exactly. we're clamoring for Rust developers.
Uh-huh.
And the community is still young enough that these corporations or these companies are looking to invest in the people out there. So you might not need to know blockchain, but you if you know Rust, then they'll make sure that you have enough knowledge to be productive in blockchain technologies. Whereas, or if you understand blockchain development, and you understand some other form of development, you don't yet know Rust, then maybe that's an opportunity they'll be willing to give you. But that said, I can't underscore the broader sort of potential for Rust development in general, because pretty much any other software out there can be replaced by one written in Rust. I mean, it compiles for the front end, for the web, for mobile devices, for servers, for desktop applications. It gives you native access to all the different hardware that you need access to, and it's compiled specifically for those things. And so it really does. Anything else that's not written in Rust is already a candidate for rewriting in Rust.
So Rust brings efficiency, it brings decentralized programming languages, and it's universal to basically all of our technology applications that we use on a daily basis. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. How can people get a hold of you, Hunter? Because you are just a wealth of knowledge. Are you going to be posting your blog posts frequently?
Absolutely.
Can people reach out to you through a comment section or something through your blog?
Absolutely. I try to respond to comments. I always appreciate feedback. Questions always get my wheels turning. What next to write about. I have about a dozen unfinished articles that I'm just, like sitting on.
Don't we
you know,
all?
I know. I finally just started doing it, and yeah, I mean, my blog is a great place to, see, new content and ask questions. LinkedIn, I like also. Remarkably enough, Microsoft's professional social network for professionals.
I love LinkedIn.
I do too.
It's great.
Everybody there is like just really serious about, most everybody about just being a better version of themselves, not being their shitty Twitter self.
Well,
But,
it's more professional.
Exactly, and you're trying to just,
And I love reading all the articles. Yeah. Definitely link in with Hunter because he posts some fantastic articles and resources. I catch him, every other day and will write comments on his LinkedIn, and he always responds. So, but yeah, I mean, I met you through the blockchain community here in Denver, Colorado, and so those are open to anywhere in the country. Look up, what was it? It was Crypto Colorado. Cryptorado. Look at Cryptorado on Meetup. They have virtual
if you
meetups.
Want to meet me occasionally, I do go down to Denver for beers and Bitcoin.
Beers and Bitcoin is always fun.
It's great. And, honestly, I really prefer to spend more of my time in the Bitcoin ecosystem with just other Bitcoiners. My opinion is, if you're not yet a Bitcoin maximalist, you don't yet know enough about Bitcoin. And, for a lot of people say a lot of things about Bitcoin or think a lot of things about Bitcoin. Here's the reality, is Bitcoin is going to reduce wealth inequality over the course of generations as it becomes more adopted. It will diminish any nation's capability to wage a perpetual war, and it will accelerate the transition to renewable energy. So that is what Bitcoin will do if I have any say in it.
Hallelujah. Yes. I mean, I don't care what Bitcoin does as far as the market. I mean,
it's just better money,
It is.
It's not really just an investment. It is a store of value, but it is a better money, and that's where we should be moving towards. So, I mean, sure, if Bitcoin hits $1 million, it'll be 20-something times more than it is now. I invest $50 a day in a Bitcoin as like a DCA, and it's funny. I used to invest my whole paycheck in a Bitcoin, borrow half back. That was getting a little rocky there. With the
leveraging right now, it can be rough. A little scary.
It's a little rough, but I was able. I didn't sell at the bottom, fortunately enough. I was able to show those off. Yeah. Good. Yep. But then now I'm taking a more conservative approach to investment, as anyone should. But yeah, $50 today, it could be $1,000. When Bitcoin hits and surpasses $1 million per Bitcoin, and
and the faster that we can bring mass adoption, the more the value is going to pump more quickly and actually become palpable currency.
Right. But and when you can start paying your Bitcoin bills in Bitcoin, I highly recommend you do at some point at least, because look, this is not like hodl till you die. Like, this is not I'm never selling my Bitcoin.
Right.
Like that is, people who say that don't understand what Bitcoin is. And it is not like an investment. You are, front running all the other people who will eventually get it. If not this generation, the next. But basically, the world will move towards Bitcoin to the point where some bills just won't be payable in anything other than Bitcoin.
I bought this rig with Bitcoin in a roundabout way, but and I love buying things with cryptocurrency because it's simple. I don't have to deal with a bank. I don't have to look at interest rates. It just is what it is.
Right.
And it's simple.
One issue though is if you make money from when you purchase that store of value, that money, then when you sell it, I'll tell you what who doesn't consider it money is, the United States government, the IRS.
They want their piece of the pie though with capital gains taxes, but they can't figure out how to figure that out.
Well,
so,
you know what? I think we should figure it out for them.
I concur. Yeah. I completely agree with you, Hunter.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't think anybody doing business in Bitcoin should be, thinking that they're doing something that is hard to account for or outside the law. I know this runs counter to the libertarian ethos, I absolutely get that, and I appreciate that. But I also, to reflect the reality that is going to be necessary for mass adoption to occur, there has to be adoption on all fronts, including the accountants, including the tax accountants, including maybe putting a tax accountant onto a server and just a tax accounting program. What about the QuickBooks of Lightning Network, right? That's what I want to develop. I call it Hypersats, by the way.
Hypersats?
Yeah, if you go to hypersats.com, it currently redirects to my GitHub profile if you ever want to see that. But,
hypersats.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a reference to, I wasn't sure if I really wanted to bring it up right now because I haven't written enough about it and spoken enough about it, but it's something I'm working on in my, back burner. And I'm actually talking to a few people about it on my end too. Just, trying to think of a good application for this. And so ideally, this will be, like kind of a way to manage a Lightning node in such a way that allows you to kind of keep track of where you got your money and when and for how much, and then when you spent it. And it'll give you an idea of your exposure to capital gains and other things in your locality. And just, get it. And ideally, someday we'll move towards a future where we'll want to earn in Bitcoin. We'll want to, pay our bills in, either Bitcoin or fiat, or maybe earn in, a mix of Bitcoin and fiat, right? Mm-hmm. And when employers can start paying their suppliers in Bitcoin and fiat, basically what I call dollar price sats. So basically, if you can imagine a Lightning node being the underpinning for paying your bills and keeping track of your expenses, knowing when to cash out of your crypto so that you can have enough to pay your bills. You can keep the majority, ideally, of your earnings or your cash on hand in in something that actually isn't as volatile as people claim it to be. And in fact, it's not Bitcoin that's volatile, right? Like, sure, there's demand. The demand varies, but the supply doesn't. It is a predictable, incorruptible money supply, and that I think is the most valuable thing for any cryptocurrency, because there's no other way to get it. And for any cryptocurrency to fuck with the money supply, like Ethereum's about to, holy shit! They call this unsound money. I mean, ultrasound money. I call it unsound money because here's the thing: what they're gonna do is they want to so how Ethereum is let's just start from the beginning. So Bitcoin is like digital gold, right?
Yes.
And Lightning is like gold-backed dollars. It makes it more saleable, right? It makes it more easier to exchange, or maybe just gold coins, whatever you want to call it. But Ethereum, on the other hand, they call it digital oil because it powers, this infrastructure of their own building, their own design, and use gas, for example. There's a reason that was chosen as an analogy for their fees. Yeah.
Okay.
Digital oil. It's a commodity, and it's not designed to have a deflationary money supply. Now, they are working on something called EIP 1559, which will be essentially burning the gas, sending the fees to a burner address where you won't. There's no way to spend from that. And the problem with that is, just about a month or so ago, we saw an event where gas prices were just through the roof, and the send.
It takes forever. It takes forever to transfer ETH too.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's any slower than Bitcoin's layer one, but that said, I will say that Lightning does help a great deal, and it is instant, right? Whereas Ethereum, they were planning on something similar called Plasma that didn't shake out. There's also some things like ZK rollups, which they have some fancy stuff that they're working on that might someday scale Ethereum. We'll see. But Lightning has mass adoption. Well, I would say mass adoption, but there's a lot of Lightning nodes out there. I run one up there. It is it's a really achieving adoption on a scale. I mean, heck, you even have a Lightning node that you haven't configured yet. But
yeah.
I mean, that's that's where we're going.
Right.
Where enough people are running them now, and there are even apps on your phone that work great with them. And there's on ramps and off ramps from sats to dollars, like Strike is working on, and Jack, what's his name, Jack Mullers? Yeah, fantastic. Work there. Especially in El Salvador, very inspiring.
It'll be El Salvador is going to be a game changer. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this pushes things forward globally.
But back to Ethereum. So they're about to burn the gas, right? But then you have these events where I actually look back in the space of when one Bitcoin block is mined. I think about 20 blocks were mined on the Ethereum side. And there were several of these blocks had far more in fees than the block subsidy, like what you get from mining a block. That several times more. In fact, I think there was one block that had 10 times more in fees. Let's see, it was like 90%. The ratio actually might not have been 10 times. It was like 90% to 10%. Might have been 10, so 10% was the block subsidy, and 90% were gas fees. It's very unusual when this happens.
Right. It's so crazy.
In the span of 10 minutes, millions of dollars worth of Ethereum were spent in fees. And imagine if those that Ether was sent, those gigaway, right, were sent to a burner address, and it would just basically it'd be like setting fire to an oil field. Yeah, sure, it'll raise the price of oil in the short term, but then that'll just incentivize people to move away from it.
Yeah,
it'll reduce its utility, and the more expensive ETH gets, people say it's like, oh, lovely, it's getting more valuable, but that reduces its utility, and so without a scaling solution that's workable, and without I would say with these new things they're bringing in, it could result in diminished utility of currently existing DeFi infrastructure. And I mean, even back then, it was a rare event back then, a month ago, where running a DeFi atomic swap contract would have cost thousands in ETH fees, Ethereum fees. That said, though, that is a huge barrier to adoption and use. Even if it costs, I've seen some contracts it costs like $100 worth of fees, even on a good day, to actually spend or operate and to use. And so that is honestly something that is a problem right now. And with reduced supply in the future from EIP 1559, that is just going to be I think the worst thing for making this digital oil be usable and have utility, because that is its whole value proposition, is for it to have utility. It's supposed to have demand, and because Lord knows its supply is all over the place. And so, and here's another thing: 75 million ETH were originally mined, are allocated before Ethereum even went live. Yeah. Right. Now we're at about 117 million ETH, I think. So I mean, the majority of ETH that exists did not get mined after the network was launched, and now they're about to next year they're going to switch to proof of stake. We'll see how that works. They're trying to make digital biofuel out of digital oil, right? They're trying to clean it up. And I think that's an apt analogy, because biofuel nowadays, it's more inefficient than just the actual oil it replaces. So for me, when I see things like proof of stake, I see these massive validator nodes in the cloud that still use at this point cloud energy instead of could be run on a $10 Raspberry Pi. And so that cost of scale is going to go somewhere. And further, when they start staking, they really don't have any incentive to sell their earnings, because they don't have costs. Anybody staking maybe they'll have the validator node that costs them $20 a month to run. but it's not, hundreds or thousands of dollars per miner of, or I don't know, maybe hundreds of dollars worth of electricity per miner, plus the mining hardware, plus, all this and that. It's proof of stake is not grounded in anything in reality, and so other than just the scarcity that currently exists. And so, yeah, I mean, it seems elegant, but no, if you're going to make more money, if you don't sell what you earn, then you're really not incentivized to release that Ethereum into the supply.
It doesn't make any sense. I can always count on you, Hunter, to explain why the altcoins are inferior to Bitcoin,
well,
which is what I love you.
And I'm not even finished. So,
oh boy.
So what I will tell you is that it will be a roller coaster. You will love it as a trader, as a speculator. There will be plenty of opportunity to make money and extract wealth from that, ecosystem until people get tired of being on the roller coaster. As Bitcoin winds up, soaking up more and more of the actual goal here, which is a store of value, not something that has utility. Then that is where we're gonna nobody's gonna invest in oil and then let that sit around, right? Oil gets used, whereas gold, when it's mined, it's here and it usually doesn't go away.
Which is why I always tell people to diversify. I mean, if you're using this as an investment, opportunity and an opportunity to build wealth.
I will say I am the least diversified investor because I have conviction and principles. But regardless, if you're looking to make money from investing, trading, whatever you call it, I'm sure that's a valuable investment.
There are a lot of opportunities right now. So
sure. But there is one more thing I will say about proof of stake, the transition to proof of stake, is that by reducing Ethereum, by reducing their energy demand, they are reducing their capability to impact energy production. Whereas Bitcoin, I truly believe, will lead to the transition.
Innovation and...
No, it will accelerate the transition to renewable energy.
Mm-hmm.
It will, allow people to invest in solar, run miners that will, monetize that solar and be able to provide some of that to the grid at some point when, the halvenings basically make it so that you make more money selling to the grid than you do from Bitcoin. And I've done a little bit of the math on this, just back to the napkin figures. It's going to take maybe about 10 years, I would say, if we build a ton of solar and a bunch of mining rigs. I think we could get this done within 10 years, where we essentially replace all the power that is currently used in the United States with basically solar. We could, if we essentially basically augmented that with Bitcoin. And once, Bitcoin's happenings reduce the block reward, it makes more sense to use that currently existing rolled out solar infrastructure to then power the grid, because it's overbuilt and it will have been built now and paid off, not through some debt mechanism. It will be financed through actual work, proof of work. And
we'll see. Solar has its problems too. So does wind, but time will tell. We will see. I don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah.
But it's exciting.
I'm just saying that the opportunity is there, and there are a couple different issues with how we produce polysilicon and metallurgical grade silicon. There's also some issues with the supply, where it comes from, right? China, and I think that if we had sufficient demand distributed worldwide for solar energy, then there will be more domestic production of solar. And you can create photovoltaic, you can create polysilicon, you can create metallurgical grade silicon from quartzite, from quartz. Just anywhere there's metamorphic rock, you're generally going to have plenty of silicon dioxide. And so I'm just saying,
we've gone completely off planet here with the topic.
But literally though, we could use what NASA's building for use off planet just here to make a bunch of solar panels.
Well, we'll have another show talking
Okay,
about
okay.
solar, but thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge about Rust and
Yeah.
your experience in Miami. Miami's got a lot of exciting things going on with their
One thing
infrastructure
I was
for crypto.
surprised by was that I just hadn't given it thought. There are not enough Bitcoin developers, and I went to a really cool session in Miami that was hosted by Jeremy Rubin, one of the Bitcoin core developers, and it was just so neat. But it was really kind of. It was nice that it was tiny, kind of, because it was intimate, and we could, really just like relay our personal thoughts and feelings, and really build each other up, right? But then another part of me is like kind of saddened, because if those were all the developers that were at the conference, that's just unfortunate.
Well, I think it's gonna have to be like a mass adoption within the development community where
Right.
people say, I'm not gonna develop in the old languages anymore. I need to learn blockchain. I need to learn blockchain development languages. And that's gonna be part of the transition as well, which is why I'm so grateful for you. And anytime I have questions, I know I can call you and I can get the answers. So definitely check out Hunter's blog and reach out to him on LinkedIn and just keep following up with him and his magnificent, beautiful mind when it comes to blockchain and the future of Bitcoin specifically, but cryptocurrency in general. And thank you so much, Hunter.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Bye, guys.